Everybody's up front.
Can you tell them? Yeah, they are.
Yeah, our guys are here. So,
Everybody, we're streaming now.
You don't say anything you don't probably know.
Jeff's the only one not here, so it would need to be you and Mike Kelly, because it's the meeting.
Okay.
Why am I getting cards? I don't have any cards.
Hang out with those college students on the beach.
No.
I know.
Golf course with a bunch of old guys.
They wanted them off the beach today, finally.
Yeah. Spring breakers.
I don't know if they listen to that, do they?
Hold on a second.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
See the whole of me?
I was gonna try and zoom in from downstairs, but I don't have a microphone on my computer.
Oh.
I made a mistake at 10 after 4 to reboot my computer so I could get it on tonight.
Yeah.
15 minutes to do 2 updates for Windows 7. That's not supposed to have any more support. And restarted, and I got told to get print agendas. It took 10 minutes for it to restart.
All my computers,
Nobody come up so I could print agendas.
all my computers are switched to Windows 10. They're actually running faster on 10 than they are on 7.
Yep, they should be.
Well, that's kind of funny because it was designed for Windows 7. But you gotta leave your machine on over the weekend. So I let Carl know, so he can upgrade it. Upgrade it.
I was gonna try and zoom in, but Mike.
Mayor, since you and I are president, why don't we go ahead and start the finance committee?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, what I suggest everybody does on the bottom left-hand side of their screen is mute their microphone unless they're speaking. Otherwise, there's gonna be a lot of feedback and stuff.
You ready for roll call?
Yeah.
Counselor Kelly?
You gotta unmute your phone. You gotta unmute if you wanna speak.
I'm doing roll call, Mike.
Here.
Counselor
President.
Moore? Counselor Moore? Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Barbell?
Here.
Counselor DeDominicus?
Here.
Counselor McFarland?
Here. Here.
You're all ready? Now you can go.
Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Finance and Budget Committee for 3/19/20. Mr. Marks is not here, so
Yep.
I'll just,
No, Richard's here. He's coming up to the podium.
oh, okay.
You should move the Plattsburgh facilitator to the podium, so anyone speaking at the podium can be heard and seen.
Good idea, I'll do that right now.
Mr. Marks is not here, so
Ladies and gents, I'm definitely here.
The first item on the agenda is a report from our department representatives, and that would be you, Mr. Marks. Do you have anything to report tonight?
Well, I was going to try and zoom in from my computer downstairs, but I've determined that I didn't have a microphone, so I couldn't zoom. So I'll have to get a mic for the next time. And the only thing I have to update is any of the February results that we've compiled in the reports. If you want to go back over those, we did those in a department head meeting, and I don't know if we actually did those in a council meeting previous to this. The results are in, and at this point in time, it's early in the year. The results are fairly pessimistic at this point because of so little activity with revenues versus the expenses for the first 2 months of January and February. And that's just because of the lack of collection for property tax revenues and things that would definitely offset these expenses if you could allocate the revenue back to January and February. Consistent with last year, but actually improved over last year, where the results from the general fund are $1.2 million negative versus $1.5 million negative year-over-year comparison for the 2 months. The rec complex is actually positive through the end of February for a $27,000 surplus, and the parking lot as well for $9,000. Water fund is a deficit of $34,000 compared to $53,000 deficit last year. Sewer fund is $114,000 surplus, and the library very consistently with last year $22,000 surplus. Once again, the results are preliminary because of the allocation of revenue for the periods coming later in the year. So, unless there's any questions about the reports specifically, they've been, I believe, sent to the mayor's office, and he's distributed them to you. And I still have to update the expenses for comparative purposes that'll show the 3-year analysis of individual expense items per department. So I'll be doing that, working on that somewhat tomorrow, and hopefully get that out by Monday of next week. Any questions?
Richard, I don't have any questions for you per se, but just for future meetings, if we could, I know there's things showing on the screen, if we could have a screen on the Zoom for anything that's going up on the,
Yeah, that's a good point for putting up the reports on a screen that you could actually all see from your Zoom connection. We'll have to do that. I'll work on that with Beth and make sure that we have something that we can put up on a screen for review.
And whoever's running the meeting can do that. All they need is the stuff to project. So Mike is running the meeting right now. If he has those, he's able to swap your face for the documents.
Oh, okay.
oh, okay.
So if you want to put those reports up, Councillor Kelly, we could look at those, unless everybody's already seen them and it's just a review of what we've already reviewed.
I don't have those at my fingertips. I can take them in and go look for them. Yes.
I don't think it's that important for right now, but in the future, it'd be nice to be able to make sure that we can see what's on the screen.
Okay, for the March reports, we'll definitely have them then.
Maybe. Are those things that can be reproduced in email, or are they PDF files or something?
Yeah, they're PDF files, so they're easily sent electronically.
If we could have those in email, say, a couple hours before the meeting, that would probably take care of the problem. We could all review them and talk about them during the meeting, look at them during the meeting.
That'll work. Yeah, usually we have them available on the the screen when we present them here. We can just call them up from Beth's files, but we can send those out just like the meeting agendas with the PDF files.
I'm gonna go come back on you. Before we go back on you, are there any other questions for Marks today?
No, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
I thought we could spend the remainder of our meeting, doing two things. One is moving forward the items for the banking meeting tonight, and then the second item was to just discuss the COVID-19 pandemic and see how that's affected our city, and try to determine what kind of financial impacts that's going to have on us, so that we can all be aware of what's coming down the pike. I can start the conversation, but certainly would appreciate the input of other people. The thing that I see that is most troublesome at this moment is the rec department. As you know, we have put a lot of stock in having the rec department be very productive this year financially and produce a lot of revenue for the city. And right now, two units of the rec complex are closed. One's the gym and the other was the Great Center. And those absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, had to be closed. There's just no way to maintain the social distance necessary, and putting that many people in one place in such close quarters, just inviting trouble, as you know. So the potential financial impacts of that are tremendous to the city's budget, but I don't think we fully know what they are. And we talked about this a little bit last night in our trial run, and Elizabeth, I thought, made a very good point that it's only been 2 weeks, folks. There's no need to panic. I don't want to take words out of Elizabeth's mouth, but that's what I remember her saying. I thought that was pretty wise. Is let's not assume that we're going to be in this terrible shape for months to come, but in the backs of our minds, we know that, well, we probably are going to be in this shape. So that will bring up the question at some point, what do we do about the rec complex? Yesterday, I thought we had a potential crisis with DPW, and we might not be able to collect revenue for trash removal and that kind of thing. But today they're back on the job, so that was very good to see the garbage trucks rolling around the city today. Does anyone else have any similar thoughts on what could happen with the budget and our finances and revenue and expenses as a result of this pandemic?
Well, one thing that I had brought up was my concern about loss of revenue through county sales tax. And I think that we don't know how long this is going to go on, we all know that part, but I think it would be very prudent for us to keep that in mind as we think about how solidly we planned our budget for the year. We're going to have to understand that probably by the end of this year, budget isn't going to look the way we anticipated. And that may also be true with overtime on the departments that handle our emergency services. So there are going to be some definite budget fluctuations as a result of all this. And I think that we just need to keep that in mind this year.
Well, and I think it will definitely have an impact on your finances. I think, I'm not gonna try to project what specific impact it will have, but I think that's why it's important, uh, basically to focus on what Mike's been saying for years, in that we need to have a positive fund balance for these emergencies, that come up. I think the other things we need to focus on now are, keeping track of what we do and what works best. So if this situation arises again in the future, certainly nothing like this has ever happened in my lifetime, but I don't see a strong reason why it couldn't. I think we need to start collecting data so we can set up a plan, for the future. Um, that says these businesses or these, parts of the city are non-essential and they should be shut down immediately instead of having to go and ad hoc decide which people are non-essential, and things of that nature. And really try to set up our systems in case something like this happens again in the future too.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. It's interesting, but I came up with all the problems, and everybody else came up with all the solutions.
I'd like to add something, Mike, I also think there's going to be, financial difficulty this year. And I want us not to think about waiting to the end of the year. I think we can give it 2-3 months, but then I think we need to sit down and re-examine the budget at that point. And you will be in a better situation to see what the deficit is 3 months from now and what you projected to the end of the year. And I don't think you wait to the end of the year to figure out what you're going to have to do. I think you have to make some decisions 3 to 6 months into this year to not allow the deficit to continue to grow any larger than it will be at that particular point.
Yes, yes.
That's thinking of. Oh, sorry, Mike.
We get some good feedback every month from Mr. Marks, of course, and I wonder if when we hear the budget results, are they going to be affected by the pandemic and everything that's happened in this city in the month of March, or are we going to see things, relatively as we budgeted and relatively fat financially? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Well, I'm predicting that March will be okay. That we'll discover at the end of the month that we made it through the month of March relatively unscathed. But after that, I predict April and forward, we're going to see some reductions in revenue and some increases in expenses. We may see a little more overtime from our first responders. We may see, as Elizabeth said, a reduction in the county sales tax, and then the rec complex looms lower because as long as it remains closed, we don't have that revenue either. So, just something for everyone to think about. Anything that comes to mind that requires discussion. I think, as Ira said, let's examine our budget each and every month going forward to look for problem areas and to respond proactively rather than reactively. Very good advice.
Well, I think I just add again. I think we're going to learn a lot from over the next 2 or 3 weeks as to what works and doesn't work in the city, and with the modifications that are being made, the mayor's already made in terms of changing the way people operate, and I think that learning should feed into how we design the way the city operates in the future as well. I sent an email today, I think, to the council and Elizabeth, specifically for you and Desi and the mayor to look at it. It was just an article that came out around what some other cities are doing with first responders and specifically the police department. And I thought it was very interesting ideas. I mean, they shut their doors. I mean, you don't walk into the police department anymore. They have masks, they have gloves, but also they have decided there are certain things they're not going to respond to in this particular crisis area, and they're reprioritizing how they're using people in the police department. I think that opens to us to have a very interesting conversation with the police department about are they continuing to operate the same way they've been operating? And if they're not, then how are they thinking about changing some of the ways they should do business? With this kind of crisis, so they can reprioritize where first responders need to be at this time. To me, it was a very interesting, very short article, and but it just struck me as I hadn't heard anything like that from the police department about how they were redesigning or rethinking the way they're doing business in this crisis.
Yes, I've been in numerous conversations recently where that is the topic. What is this going to do to the city government long term? And while we would never wish that this would happen in a million years, we will learn things, as you said, and we will be able to come out on the other side of it doing things perhaps a little smarter than we do today. We'll have to strive for that anyway.
First of all, I remind everybody, make sure their mic is muted if you're not actually using it. Just a couple of points. I'm very proud of the fact that we're doing 5 and 10 year budgeting. I think that really has been a saving grace to build that fund balance up. I think now we have to look very carefully at 6-month and 1 year budgeting as well. I think that's kind of where you're going with all this. We're entering into a new normal. I don't think that everything is going to pop back to normal in 6 months. For that matter, I don't think it'll pop back to normal in a year or 2 years. So if we're thinking, well, we'll just hold on to this and hold on to that and see how this happens and see how that happens. No, I think we need to understand where the city might look in 6 months and figure out how to guide it to the best path there. Nobody thinks that this is a 3-week phenomenon anymore. At one time they did. I think the president even said he's looking at 6 months, September, before we really get control of this. If we really lower that peak that we're trying to, flatten the curve like everybody keeps saying, that's to stretch a 2-month catastrophe into a 12-month severe disruption. So I think we really need to be planning for a new normal for the foreseeable future. And then what the city's going to look like at the end of that is probably going to be different, because we're going to relatively irretrievably rearrange some priorities. So I think we're going to need to have some very, very hard conversations along those lines. I think everybody's so far in kind of a wait and see mode, and I think that we're going to have to very quickly get out of that wait and see mode. I think it's natural for us to be in a wait and see mode because this has only happened for the last few days. But I think we need to immediately start planning for the future and make some very difficult decisions.
I agree. I think we need to start making contingencies and long-term plans. It becomes a 4-month, 5-month, 6-month, however many month process. We have to figure out the policies that we want to try to enact. We have to think about the residents of the city. If someone's home for that amount of time, are they going to be able to pay their electric bill? Are they going to be able to pay their rent? I think we might have to discuss policies of making sure that no one gets evicted during this crisis, making sure that no one's water gets shut off, making sure no one's electricity gets shut off, making sure no one's garbage pickup ceases, and try to work out policies to alleviate those kind of concerns for people, and such other things. Maybe even if infection rates increase, we want to start talking about what our plan is for a field hospital. Can we have discussions with SUNY Plattsburgh on using their dorms, or can we talk about how we're going to start training people to help the people that get infected? I think these are certainly policies we need to start discussing now.
I think, Patrick, that's a good list. I'd add one other to it. That's, I think when you start talking about going 6 to 10 months out, distancing, can they put in, similar to, say, Washington, where you vote by mail? Can they put, is it possible even to make changes in that system? So we're not going to have, 20% of the population coming to the voting booth in the fall. I know that's not our crisis right now in the city, but if you're thinking far out the way you're talking, that's a big issue, I think, for the country and for just right here in Plattsburgh as well. So anyway, it's just my 2 cents on that.
Hey, folks, if you don't mind, let's go to the next item on the agenda for the finance committee meeting. That is to bring forward the items from the various departments to be approved by the committee and recommended to the council. And there's one item tonight, and that is a request from Manager Bill Tracy that PMLD bid number 2020-2-1, the warehouse forklift be awarded to Northern Toyota Lift in the amount of $31,995. And I have a motion to approve having that item moved to the regular agenda.
Yeah, I'll make that motion, Wayne.
Second?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Second?
Second?
Okay, seconded by Mayor Reed. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Reed,
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is any old business. Any new business? With that, I'll make the motion to adjourn the Finance and Budget Committee meeting.
We'll second that.
Okay. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Reed,
Yes.
Okay, our meeting is adjourned at 5:01 PM, and it's time to start the work session. Mayor Reed?
Thank you all for coming to try this novel new technology. We seem to be working out relatively well. I'm glad everybody has managed to get on okay. We are prepared to see people who wish to offer their comments via YouTube chat when the time comes, and that facility will be available to us. I want you to know that City Hall is available to anybody who really insists on coming, although we certainly hope they don't. And we do have fire protection at the front door to protect our workers and any visitors as well, and police presence as well. But so far, we don't have any visitors, and I'm grateful that perhaps anybody who potentially wanted to visit is visiting virtually as well instead. So these are obviously very unusual times. But let's continue on with the meeting otherwise. This is a time,
I think you just touched on this, but there's no one there for the public hearing?
not at this moment, no. So,
announce it and we'll adjourn it.
so okay, let's do that at first order of business then. The City of Plattsburgh is holding a public hearing to hear public comment, local law P1 of 2020, a local law adding Article 7 entitled Levy and Collection of Taxes, Board of Assessment Review per Section 306-36 through Section 306-51 to Chapter 306 Taxation to the City Code of the City of Plattsburgh. We do have a sign-up sheet, and at this point, the sign-up sheet is empty. Would there be any members who would like to comment? And Beth, can you open up the YouTube chat for us here? Beth may need to have to come over for a minute. Beth, you're muted.
I'd have to come over and I'll open it up.
Could you?
Just 1 second.
Thank you. So if you can just hold tight for a moment, everybody. That's his reporting that there'd been nobody chatting up to now.
While we're waiting for Beth, I had a question anyway on, it's section 306-50, voids and erroneous assessment powers of the common council.
Just to chime in, Ira, this is just a public hearing, so when we get to the actual introduction of the local law during the meeting, we can discuss it. We don't want to set a precedent of combining the public hearing.
Yeah, I'm fine, I can wait.
And please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law has already been presented to you. Any modifications to the local law would require beginning the process over again.
There's no one chatting.
Beth reports there's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. The reason is that there's up to a 30-second delay on the YouTube, so we'll just wait a few minutes, then we'll close.
Just to chime in, Ira, this is just a public hearing, so when we get to the actual introduction of the local law during the meeting, we can discuss it. We don't want to set a precedent of combining the public hearing.
Yeah, I'm fine, I can wait.
And please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law has already been presented to you. Any modifications to the local law would require beginning the process over again.
There's no one chatting.
Beth reports there's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. The reason is that there's up to a 30-second delay on the YouTube, so we'll just wait a few minutes, then we'll close.
Just to chime in, Ira, this is just a public hearing, so when we get to the actual introduction of the local law during the meeting, we can discuss
Okay,
it.
we close the public hearing at this time. There's no in-person or online. Thank you. And please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law has already been presented to you. Any modifications to the local law would require beginning the process over again.
There's no one chatting.
We can then continue on with there's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. The reason is there's up to a 30-second delay on the YouTube, so we'll just wait a few minutes, then we'll close.
Just to chime in, Ira, this is just a public hearing, so when we get to the actual introduction of the local law during the meeting, we can
Would you like to offer your committee reports you have in your packet, your usual body of reports? And by the way, and please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law is Gmail account, so that also gives you an ability to share documents. You'll find in your file folders in Chrome something called shared file. There's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. Filing things like our agenda and all the supporting materials can always be found there. And you'll have access during the meetings. We're going to have every station set up with a Would you like to offer your committee reports? You have access to all your materials right on body of reports. And by the way, and please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law is Gmail account, strategy and city operations. That also gives you the ability to share documents. You'll find in your file folders in Chrome something called shared file. There's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. Filing things like our agenda and all the supporting materials can always be found there. And you'll have access during the meetings. We're going to have every station set up with a would you like to offer your committee reports? You have access to all your body of reports. And by the way, please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law is Gmail account, strategy and city operations. That also gives you the ability to share documents. You'll find in your file folders in Chrome something called shared file. There's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. Filing things like our agenda and all the supporting materials can always be found there. And you'll have access during the meeting. City infrastructure, we're going to have every station set up with a would you like to offer your committee reports? You have access to all your body of reports. And by the way, please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law is Gmail account, strategy and city operations. That also gives you the ability to share documents. You'll find in your file folders in Chrome something called shared file. There's no one chatting. Let's wait 30 seconds. Filing things like our agenda and all the supporting materials can always be found there. And you'll have access during the meeting. City infrastructure, we're going to have every station set up with a would you like to offer your committee reports? You have access to all your body of reports. And by the way, please keep in mind, with any public hearing, the local law is Gmail account, strategy and city operations. Gives you the ability to share documents. require, you'll find in your file folders and Chrome, something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have access during the meeting. City infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file folders and something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have access during the meeting. City infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have access during the meeting. City infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have all your city infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have all your city infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have all your city infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have all your city infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And have all your city infrastructure is going to have everything you need to if you like more fully you'll access all your body of reports. And by the way, keep in mind that you all receive email, government, city office, the ability to share a document prior. You'll find in your file something called the shared file. There's no one chatting within 30 seconds, filing things like our agenda and all important materials files and find there. And There you go. See, that did it.
Oh, that's what
That was it.
then. So when we do put that up to see
That's
that
why
it's
it's
chatting,
muted. Yeah.
then we're gonna have to remind me to, we'll mute it, right?
We'll try putting it up again and mute it then and see if that makes any difference.
Do I mute the computer first?
Hmm?
Should I mute the computer first?
What do you mean?
Like over here, the volume?
Yeah, there you go. I think you muted it there. Let's see if that will work.
Is that on? Oh, mute speakers, that's what I want, okay. So now,
You know, it's not going to be mute speakers. It's going to be. You got to find the mixer in there.
here's a mixer.
You know what you do? Just turn that. You can disconnect that completely, and I'll get a YouTube feed on this little screen right here.
Okay.
Save it,
Oh,
right?
perfect, okay. So there it is.
Yep.
I didn't even start it yet, so they should.
That'll work. We've got another few minutes to figure that out.
So now it should be good though. I will see if,
No, you still got the Chrome open, so it's still the. Is that still?
no, I didn't open it,
Maybe it's
I
okay.
closed it, that's just the website, there we go. Now, nothing's on there about my big.
Okay. So, shouldn't pick up here then? Not picking up this.
It probably is on my big.
Maybe unmuted the microphone. You might have done it a minute ago. testing, 1, 2, testing.
Well, it worked when I had the.
There you go, doing something now.
Yeah, because I had volume down,
Oh, okay.
so hopefully that's working, but it doesn't show me.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll be able to see right in just a second here, so let's start up YouTube. There it is. One, two, three, 4, 5. Yeah, 'cause we're clicking now. That's got it.
But what is that music?
Hmm?
Did you hear that?
Yes, because I accidentally played
Oh.
a YouTube video.
Oh, I
This
see.
first one was the next one that came up.
Yeah, okay,
So,
But it,
how do I get the chat feature going on here?
you should see it on the right hand side, it's just open, and when you chat, it should be right on there. Yeah, you have to open it.
This?
There. It's on the right hand side, if you maybe close it up next there.
It goes up next to the top chat.
Oh, there you go.
Is that
And then
right?
I'll show, see, there you go.
Yeah.
Now they're on there.
Yeah, there we go.
They were just saying that the video, a lot of people were commenting that you can. Hopefully they comment now that they can hear. Okay, bye-bye.
Counselors, it looks like we got the YouTube glitch figured out. We'll soon know when people chat along, but people have been helping us via chat to diagnose that too. 3 more minutes. Good, that's working.
I think I read in the paper that the, was it Clinton County Legislature was doing electronic meeting, but they had no vehicle for public to have any input. So they're still working on that.
I recall my legislator days that we really tried to get a technology that actually the city of Plattsburgh has been working with for some time, and it's pretty encouraging to also have the opportunity for public forum and public comment here as well.
And it's much better for me listening from your
Can you
computer.
hear okay?
It was very echoey before. Now
Mhm. Good.
Does everyone have a flag for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Just thinking the same thing. Jeff and I've got it covered here with Bill. So let's begin the meeting tonight of the Common Council with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I have pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
To the
America,
flag of the United States of
to
America,
the republic for which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Beth?
Gotta unmute it.
Reed,
Present? Present?
Counselor Barbell,
Here.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Counselor Gibbs,
Here.
Counselor Giannikis,
Here.
Counselor McFarland,
Here.
Counselor Moore,
Here.
Thank you all for coming in these unusual times and for putting up with us as we get used to this technology. As I mentioned earlier, if this technology should fail, we do have a backup with Google Hangouts. We'll try that at some point as well. Of course, we've got a number of stations here for the good old Skype, if that need be, or even audio conferencing. I believe with audio conferencing, though, that would not meet the need for counselor participation. Isn't that correct, counselor or counsel?
Actually, under the suspension of the open meetings law, it does allow for teleconferencing, but since we have the available technology and we're not utilizing it, I certainly would prefer we try this or continue to use it.
Okay, as you know, we've been having our regular weekly video or opportunities for the press conferences.
Mr.
And
Mayor, if you're talking, you're not unmuted, by the way.
I'm sorry. We have been having our regular weekly press conferences, and actually this week I think we've had 2 or 3 already. The press is obviously very concerned and interested, and they've been acting as a wonderful conduit in a non-alarming manner at all. People are wanting to have good information, and they need to know how to respond to it. So the press have been doing a great service, and we're appreciative of that. At the press conference today, I did mention, and many of you I'm sure are following this, that there is a second confirmed case in Clinton County, maybe more by now. That's as of this morning or last night. Obviously, the cases that we're now discovering now are cases that are probably based on infections days ago, so we expect that to grow rapidly. In my press conferences over the last couple of weeks, I think a couple of weeks ago I talked about the rate of infection in New York doubling every 4 days, then it started doubling every 3 days, doubling every 2 days. Now we're doubling in reported instances about once or every day. So this is growing quite exponentially at this point. All up and down the North Country, or the Northway now, except for Franklin County and St. Lawrence County. I don't think I've seen anything there yet, but certainly Essex, Hamilton, Warren, Washington, Albany. Albany is the 5th highest infection rate in the state at this time. You've heard us say many times now and already earlier in this session that the goal here is to really lower the peak, flatten that curve. Ultimately, as everybody knows by now, approximately 2/3 or more of us all will be infected at some point or another, probably within next year or a shorter period if it really takes off and gets out of hand. So our whole goal is to spread that infection rate over a much, much longer period of time than they experienced in China or are experiencing in Italy. That way we will try to allow for the ability for our healthcare providers to actually cope with not too large a number. But we're obviously also planning and developing contingencies for a large number that would normally overrun the healthcare system. So our whole goal here is to manage the population that our healthcare system has to take care of. Certainly with the city of Plattsburgh having an average population density 600 times higher than the rest of the county and housing a quarter of the population of the county, we're in a particularly important role in trying to manage this. We certainly put in processes and protocols well before probably more rural areas would need to have done it. As a matter of fact, we're probably putting in protocols earlier than just about any other city, except for New York City and perhaps New Rochelle, because we really want to make sure that we can do our very best in managing this population in the city of Plattsburgh for its residents, but also its university and its hospital and its churches and its nursing facilities and extended care facilities, etc. We're in somewhat of a unique position, and we're having to then thank the council, thank us all for exercising the leadership necessary to really stay ahead of this. And we'll continue to do so. I've had people sending me ideas after ideas, including an idea that we talked about a little bit earlier tonight, even talking about our institutions that house people, for instance, the college and vacant hotels, etc., see if they can play a role in mitigating this and helping control the population in the hospitals. I think the moral of the story is, we're doing an awful lot of things. We've had a lot of cooperation from our city employees. Richard is still here, and I know his staff were some of the first to start working online and taking turns coming in to handle the mail or do check runs, etc. So no more than one person have to be in the office at the same time. People are calling our department heads. I've had the promise that we're going to deliver services as best we can with as much continuity as we possibly can. There's birth certificates that still need to be done. There's checks that still need to be written. There's POs that still need to be done. People's garbage still needs to be picked up, etc. We just need to do that in ways that don't risk our staff or the members of the public. And we're coming up with great protocols to figure out how to do that without any delay in the emergency services that are so important at this time. And we're doing it, as we discussed earlier, with in mind that we may be doing this for an awful long time, counted certainly in months, certainly not in days or weeks. So we're really planning for this operationally for the long haul. And I'm pleased to see the council talking tonight about, but also planning for long-term policies in the budget for the long haul, the next 6 months or 12 months. And that's really reassuring that we have that long-term outlook for something that's going to exist for quite a while. Some of you are my age. I just turned 60, so some of us in this room are, I think all of us in this room are, maybe Richard's not, but we're in that vulnerable population as well. This is something that we're going to have to plan for some time and really work hard to protect the most vulnerable among us, especially those in the nursing homes and extended care facilities that are very vulnerable. Some of them may have respiratory conditions that accentuate all this. And I'm just very pleased to see everybody stepping up to the plate and understanding the seriousness of this, but also doing this with a manner of hope. Hope that we can really get a handle on this and do what's best for our community. That's, I think, what's going to make all the difference. It's not a time at all to panic. It's a time to, in a very cool-headed way, do the best we can to protect the most number of people we can. And people are really stepping up to the plate. Outside our door right now are 3 members of the firefighters that are here to protect the public should they arrive. And I know the police are also here to protect the public. And we need to protect our staff too, because if our staff get infected, they could in turn infect other members of the public too. So everybody's really understanding the ramifications of this, the long-termness of this, and our role in public safety. So I thank you all. I'm sure we're going to be having conversations like this just about every week and as often as you would like in additional meetings. I know you've been having special committee meetings. Public safety had 2 meetings this week to discuss issues related to this, and I appreciate all your hard work in this. So having said that, we'll get through this as a city. We always do. This is certainly the biggest thing that's happened to me in my lifetime. I remarked earlier that a lot of things have happened over 60 years, but this is really significant. I'm really pleased how we're dealing with this locally so much better than perhaps some others have the fortune or misfortune of dealing with in other countries much less effectively. So we'll get through this, and thank you all for your help and support. Please continue.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on March 12, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the City Clerk's office.
Moved by, who was that? Councilor Barbell, and second by Councilor DeDominicus. Any discussion? All in favor? Just to
Aye.
raise your hand, I think would be fine.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payroll for the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending March 18th, 2020 in the amount of $59,125.66 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor DiDomenico, seconded by Councilor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think that was just a delay for Councilor Moore. I think he was in favor. Passed.
Such a delay.
We took the various reports of the various committees. Is there anybody, by putting up your hand, like to offer any additional reports at this time? Seeing none, resolve the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor DiDomenicus and second by Councilor Gibbs. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passed. Please, no correspondence or recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills audited by the Common Council for the week ending March 20th, 2020 in the amount of $567,924.55 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore and second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Let's give the public 30 seconds delay for public comment period. And this public comment period is for anybody who'd like to address any items on the agenda itself, and we will have another public comment period at the end of the meeting. There's no public comment in written form or in chat, and nobody waiting to come in for public comment, so let's please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves PMLD bid number 2020-2-1 warehouse forklift be awarded to Northern Toyota Lift in the amount of $31,995.
Moved by Councilor DiDomenicus and second by Councilor McFarland. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor DiDomenicus?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Yes.
Adoption of local law P-1 of 2020. A local law adding Article 7 entitled Levy and Collection of Taxes Board of Assessment Review per Section 306-36 through Section 306-51 to Chapter 306 Taxation to the City Code of the City of Plattsburgh. This local law shall take effect immediately upon approval by the mayor and filing with the New York Secretary of State, the entire text of which has been distributed to and read by the members of the Common Council, is hereby enacted without the reading thereof, and a copy of said local law is made part of the minutes of this meeting.
Moved by Councilor Gibbs and second by Councilor Moore. Discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Dominicus,
Yes.
Counselor McFarland,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Yes.
There's no travel.
Just so as we just so as we know, this local law is subject to a permissive referendum. So Sylvia will notify the public, and if there is no newly filed petition filed within 45 days, then we will file it. If there is a petition, then the matter goes to the general public through an election.
There's no travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business or additional councilor reports? I'd like to first of all thank Councillor Kelly for helping get all this technology together. I mean, he had a lot of help in the IT staff, and Christian Balin was around to help as well. I think Ira Barbell was here to do some of the beta testing with us, and Councillor Moore as well. So I thank you all for doing this. Poor Beth was our guinea pig for a lot of these practice sessions, but it looks like it worked as smoothly as we would have hoped. I see that the YouTube chat is still up, and the YouTube line no longer has that delay, so we've figured out that glitch. And do know that we do have a backup if this fails. We do have Google Hangouts to try out as well, and we'll ensure that we'll do some practice on that for next week, just in case as well. But thank you all for being willing to log into this and make this a success. Any other additional new business or council reports?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to let everyone know that this meeting that we've held today is being recorded in Zoom as well. And as soon as the meeting ends, as soon as it's adjourned, I will stop the recording. And I will, with your permission, I will send that link to the counselors so they can see the recording, and we can decide collectively what to do with that. It's something new for us, and it may serve some purpose in the future.
Thank you. Any other new business or council reports? We'll now afford the public another opportunity to share their thoughts with us on any issue of mutual concern. We have an opportunity for public to attend in person and through the chat, and I believe that we've not received any public comment to be read at this time. So let's give this 1 minute to allow for any potential lags on YouTube. There's been no comments, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor McFarland, second by Councillor DeDominicus. Roll call.
Counselor Barbell,
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Dominicus,
Yes.
Counselor McFarland,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Stay safe, and thank you for making this effort.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
So I can definitely join the meeting, but I need a mic and a camera.
Oh, you want the camera to you?
No.
Oh, you're on your PC, huh?
Oh yeah, it was great. You could hear everybody
Camera,
really
but I
well,
don't
see
have-
everybody.
Yeah.
You can see I was up there as Mark Czar, but just a black screen.
Yeah.
Do you have a laptop?
I bought a nice laptop for my wife, but my stepson took it, and who knows where the hell it is
I
now.
bought a new laptop, but there's no camera on it.
But I can hook up a camera and a microphone. pretty easily.
If there's anybody missing, you can certainly join any one of these stations. They're all empty,
Just sign
and
in on
everyone's
one of
got a
those.
computer, so
Yep.
we can rig that up for you next week.
But that linked up really nice. I had to download an update to Zoom, and as soon as I did, I could use the meeting ID and the password. Sign right in.
This is still streaming.
You're
Good.
recorded.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.